So, and first of all, I want to thank Castrol for their tremendous support of soccer in the U.S., around the world. It's sponsors like this that continue to move the sport in this country. We know we still have a ways to go, and we're excited about that journey, and I think it's been an interesting journey for myself, and why we're kind of part of this high mileage campaign. And I think you look at Castrol and you look at the kind of like the technological innovations that they have produced throughout the 100 years of Castrol and more, and when they look upon that, they look at the thought about it. We're part of soccer, we're part of moving forward and doing this kind of stuff, and then what can we do to take that innovation side of things, and they come up with the Castrol Index, like as you mentioned earlier. And for me, I wasn't necessarily a statistics kind of guy. I was just go out, do your job, and go from there. And especially when you kind of look at kind of index situations, because as a goalkeeper, it's all about scoring goals and assists. And I'm looking at it going, okay, I got to be way down the totem pole because I don't want to get scored on, so I must be way down. And so I think what's so cool about the index is how it's kind of changed. It's changed to focal points on the field. Where are those danger zones, where are those situations, and how those players in those positions and react because of how they pass out of it, how they score, how they save, how they make sliding tackles. And I think it's a cool way that Castrol has kind of changed, kind of the way you look at a performance index. And then you kind of look and you say, Castrol, motor oil, soccer, Kasey Keller, kind of how does all that kind of come together? And you kind of look at it and you're talking about your best miles ahead, you're talking about the mileage that you had, and it's kind of about the journey, and for me it was a tremendous journey throughout my soccer career in Europe and everything else, but then it also goes back down to, for me, where it all kind of started. And I remember, driving in my car, with my mom. My mom had a terrible sense of direction, so I was late for so many games because my mom couldn't find the field that we were supposed to get to. And I think, well, if it hadn't have been for my mom in a car trying to get to where I was as a kid, to get to a particular field and a particular game, and that's kind of where it all started. We went back last night with the U.S. Centenary and talking about this moment in this World Cup and this moment, and that put it forward. And then a couple of different people kind of referred to a lot of the administrators and the coaches kind of in the back of the building, and think about that. That's truly where it kind of starts. It starts with parents and kids in their cars driving to a field, driving to practice, and being a part of stuff. And I think it makes a perfect relationship between soccer and motor oil and cars, because it is. It's about that journey and getting yourself to where you go. And how do we get there? We get there in our car, and I did. And I enjoy that aspect, and I'm just looking forward to a cool relationship and for it to keep going and keep growing and being a part of U.S. soccer, and doing it now from a broadcasting side, and still staying involved and enjoying just as this game continues to grow. And I remember where I started and with the national team back in '89, and where it's at right now, that we have such tremendous sponsorship and groups of people involved, and it's a fantastic journey, and I'm happy to be a part of it with Castrol and moving forward. So, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything that you have. But it's like I said, it's a fun time to be part of U.S. Soccer. It's a fun time to have been a part of U.S. Soccer, to have been a part of that journey, and really seen the growth as it continues to grow. I'm glad to be at it from a little bit different angle.
I'm Carlos Mojica from Centro Deportivo, and you're one of the first U.S. goalkeepers to really make it big in Europe. And how does it feel now to see other U.S. players that are not only playing for bigger name teams, but they're also key parts of those teams? They're not just good players. For example, Michael Bradley for AS Roma and Clint Dempsey at Tottenham Spurs. How does that make you feel? What are your thoughts on that?
I kind of looked back, and I kind of, at different times, I remember I gave a speech one time, and I talked about, as a kid, I was starting to give up the other sports, and my father kind of didn't understand. My father wasn't a soccer player. He was, a typical kind of American guy. He played baseball in college and different things, and I had said to him, if I start giving up the other sports, I need to be, and I'm concentrating on soccer, and he goes, but there's no professional league in our country. Why are you playing a sport that has no professional league? And I said, well, I need to go to Europe. And this is the arrogance of a 16-year-old farm kid from Olympia, Washington, that I thought, well, of course, I'm just going to go to Europe and play. And then I realized later, it wasn't until later that I realized that I was kind of the first person to really make it on an American passport in England. I was the first American to play in Spain, and I take a lot of pride that I guess somebody had to do it. And now, if what I did helped open the door for a few other people and see that, okay, Americans can make it and they can perform on the European level and at the world stage, and I'm just proud that I had the opportunity and was able to take advantage of it. And what's cool now, and there was no MLS when I was there. I had to go find a different route because, and to see players now, see like a Tim Howard be able to start his career in MLS and then go on and have a great European career. Clint Dempsey as well, and I think that's where everything is really moving great in soccer, is that there's so many different options now for players that I didn't have, and it just shows that the sport is just healthier and healthier all the time. We're now getting, being a part of the Seattle Sounders and having average attendances of over 40,000, and would have been unheard of. When I was coming through in the early 90s, it was unheard of to think that we were hoping as a national team to get 10,000 for a game somewhere. And then now we're going to have RFK sold out, and it's just a different time. And I was just proud that I was a part of getting it all started. And now the guys I think the sky's the limit for the guys now. And I'm still waiting, I think, for that. I think it has to be a striker. I think it has to be a goal scorer, that American player that starts his career in MLS, gets bought by a team in Europe, scores a bunch of goals for that team, gets then bought by a major, gets bought by a Real Madrid, a Manchester United, a Barcelona, a Bayern Munich, is the leading goal scorer in his league, leading goal scorer in Champions League for 4 or 5 seasons. I think we're still waiting for that one world marquee player, but we've come a huge, huge way from where we started in this sport, and relationships like Castrol with the national team are going to make it even more possible for these young kids to get those opportunities.